Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm talking about the new moon in Sagittarius on the 18th of December at 6:30 AM Universal Time, and outline the key themes that it's an opportunity to explore along the aspects to it. So with the new moon taking place in Sagittarius, we're looking at opportunities for new beginnings here in areas ruled by Sagittarius. So this is things like truth, a sense of freedom, of exploring or long distance travel in order to understand the world around us better than just what we learn in our immediate neighbourhood. And it also deals with connecting with nature in order to understand the natural cycles and learning to surrender to a higher power or hear the messages coming through our intuition. So generally speaking, with intuition, it's not necessarily going to be words that we hear. It's be more like symbolic images. So this is something we develop through things like meditation. So by spending a bit of time in meditation around this time, we may well find discover new things about ourselves and how we personally relate to the world around us. Now, as I said at the start, it's also dealing with truth, and this is things like spiritual truth. So it's moving out of personal consciousness and into more transpersonal consciousness, and understanding that we're not an isolated unit living on this planet. We're interconnected with everything around us, both connected to every other human being on the planet, but also connected to the environment around us. And we tend to feel this most clearly when we're in natural environments. So if there's a natural environment nearby, it's often worth spending time there if you can, just to relax, unwind, and feel that sense of balance and peace that can come from spending time in nature, away from the constant stimulation of a city environment or of urban area, and learning to appreciate that sense of calm that can come through being in a natural environment rather than man-made. So it's also about bringing a sense of peace to the mind through developing greater understanding. And the more we can understand who we are by taking the inner journey and looking at our own beliefs, how they affect the world around us, or how they affect the way we interact with the world, and observing where certain beliefs may actually be holding us back, and using this new beginning as a time to free ourselves from that. So to let go of old restrictive beliefs that we may have and move to a more open-minded perspective through breaking, because beliefs, either they empower us, so they're a key to freedom, or they form a prison, but they're always a prison that only we can break out of. Other people can bring awareness to it, but we have to change those beliefs inside ourselves. No one else can do that, and we can't change another person's beliefs either, because that is entirely theirs. But we can try and understand where other people are coming from, and see if their approach to things, their beliefs and their worldview may actually inform our own, and reveal where certain things in our own worldview are biased or limiting, and to overcome these so we can break free of some of the pitfalls which you can get, like judgmentalism, bigotry, and realise that different people have different belief systems, partly depending on where they grew up, and each belief system has its own benefits and its own downfalls. So if we are open-minded enough to hear what other people are saying without necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with what they're saying, and evaluate the belief system underlying it, and see if any of those beliefs can give us greater freedom, or understand the belief that is driving certain behaviours in the other person, so we can approach them with more understanding rather than more judgment. So the new moon in Sagittarius is both a time for new beginnings, but also an opportunity to release certain habits. And with Sagittarius, one thing that we can end up doing is, Sagittarius is that sense of adventure, spontaneity, but it can also be irresponsible if taken to the extreme, and can also engage in things to excess. So it's great to enjoy life, it's great to enjoy the different pleasures in life, but taken to an excess, they then become harmful, because the ego is being bloated to a ridiculous extent, and it needs to be brought back under control through slowing down and remembering that self-understanding will help us to figure out what changes we need to make in our own lives, and where we need to modify our own belief systems to break free of any self-imposed limitations that we set for ourselves. So it's also an opportunity to try and expand the mind more. So look at the world around us, but also look at how our own actions and behaviours contribute to the reality we see around us and affect it in its own way. Because we can't, in and of ourselves, we can't change the world around us through focusing on external. We can only change our relationship to it on the internal level, and through changing our beliefs, by embracing more empowering ones and embracing more optimism and hope rather than looking at things through pessimism and fear, we can modify our own actions and our own perception of the world around us. And this changed perception can open our minds up to other experiences around us which we've completely overlooked. On a scientific level, there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, the RAS for short. It's like a master filter, and this filter is what determines our perceptions to some extent. It's just within the subconscious mind, but if we understand how this filter is programmed and what we've programmed it with so far, we can change its programming. So instead of filtering out all the positive things around us, so we're only focusing on negative things or what's going wrong, if we can recalibrate it through things like meditations, through positive affirmations, we can reprogram this filter so that it filters out all the negative stuff around us that will bring us down or affect our faith, and instead have the filter working so it's looking for the opportunities rather than the traps. So, by what I mean by that is, we still need to be discerning. We do need to be careful of what we're doing. So we don't want to go blindly into pitfalls. But if we can change our mindset through looking for opportunities to grow and changing our perception of obstacles, so we see them as an opportunity to go within and see what's slowing us down, we can embrace a growth mindset rather than a fixed and stagnating mindset. So it's opening the mind up to opportunities to transform ourselves and change our beliefs through being open to new experiences and looking for experiences based on any intentions we may set for ourselves. So for example, say we wanted to set an intention to open our mind more, and we decide to make the effort to expand our minds. Initially, we may experience a lot of resistance inside ourselves against this, because we're used to the world working in line with our own beliefs. But if we're suddenly open our minds up to experiences which challenge our beliefs and force us to realise there's more than what we realise, this can be uncomfortable to begin with, but that discomfort is necessary for growth. Because inside our comfort zone, there's no growth. I mean, how many times have we heard that from various people? Certainly, we've heard this numerous times at the Magdalene Centre itself. So what I'm saying here is nothing new here. But if we don't actually take responsibility for our beliefs and have the courage to challenge our own cherished beliefs and realise where some of them are actually detrimental to us, no matter how much we may be attached to them, then we can open our minds up to greater freedom. And by taking this responsibility for our beliefs and having the courage to look at ourselves first rather than just blindly judging everything else, because the only thing we can control is ourselves. And if we take personal responsibility for who we are, of what we do and what we believe, then that responsibility is what gives us that freedom in the first place. There's no freedom without responsibility at the end of the day, because if we do things and we don't take responsibility for it, that creates karma, and that karma will come back at some point to bite us in the backside and force us to realise that everything we do has a consequence. But if we take responsibility for what we're doing, we can achieve that sense of expansion, that adventure, that connecting to a power greater than ourselves, and allowing it to guide us through our intuition rather than trying to force things through dogmatic beliefs. If we can embrace our intuition and have the courage to follow it, even though initially we may have discomfort doing it because it goes against what we thought was right, but thinking comes from conditioning to begin with. It doesn't mean that we put away logic. Logic is necessary as well, but intuition is looking at the big picture and understanding how things are interrelated, and it's what allows us to connect with the flow. So, but for us to hear the intuition, which is a lot quieter than the ego, we have to take that time for ourselves, either in natural environments or just in meditation in general, to drop below the racket of the thinking mind and open up to the sense perceptions of the intuitive mind, the right brain that looks at whole patterns rather than just the individual details. Because if we can perceive the big picture and the route that certain actions will take through that picture, we can change things. We can adjust our own actions and take a different route that's going to be more empowering and may well help other people as well. Because Sagittarius is also about connecting with one another at the level of the mind, and it's about developing a sense of comradeship and putting aside a difference, or making the effort to connect with another person, and rather than allowing stereotypes or anything like that to cloud our perception of this person from the get-go, it's having the courage to put aside our own perceptions to begin with and listen to another person, speak to them, engage with them, treat them as someone completely new regardless of what their background is. And it's only by listening that we can actually grow. Talking constantly doesn't do anything, and sticking with people who are always exactly like us is not going to achieve any growth either, because there's no one challenging our perceptions, because we're relying on confirmation bias to prove we're right. But if we have the courage to interact with people who are from different backgrounds and who have different experiences to us, different beliefs and a different lifestyle, that person may well teach us a lot, but only if we're prepared to listen. Now, it doesn't mean blindly follow what other people are doing. Skepticism is necessary as well to avoid being duped into something or following something which isn't helpful for us. But at least if we take the time to listen and allow our intuition to guide us to whether what we're hearing is right or not, because we know when something is true because it feels right. As uncomfortable as it may be, we instinctively know when something is true or not based on what we feel. But if we're shut off from our feelings, then this intuitive wisdom of what is truth or not will not be there for us. So we have to be in touch with our own feelings, our own sense impressions as well. And by taking that time to ourselves to do things like meditation, to spend time in nature where all the daily stress and inconveniences just seem to dissolve in an area where they just don't matter, and gives us a wider perspective and allows us to put things into context. By taking time to slow down and do this inner work of connecting with our intuition, then we'll be much better able to figure out or be discerning as to whether something is true or false, and we won't have to rely on other people telling us what is right or wrong. We would have an instinctive moral compass based on what our intuition is telling us, but it's only going to be there if we take the time out for ourselves to connect with our own feelings and connect with the deeper levels of our mind beyond just the rational conscious mind, which at the end of the day is just one tiny island in the ocean of unconscious. If we just rely on everything through the conscious mind, then we're going to have a very limited perspective of things. sometimes we just have to have the courage to delve into our own unconscious mind and realise there's far greater depth than what we're currently aware of. There's more to who we are, and what's happening in our unconscious has far more bearing on our conscious reality than we realise. And it's by delving into the unconscious and making it conscious that we can empower ourselves to achieve freedom. So it's been quite a long post already, but quickly need to go through aspects as well. We've got Saturn is in Sagittarius at the moment, but we're moving into Capricorn in 2 days' time, and the new moon is going to be conjunct Saturn. So this is dealing with the necessity of being disciplined about things, and also testing, because Saturn is the karmic taskmaster, shows where things, or highlights weaknesses and shows where a belief may be creating a prison. So this is a time for reflecting on our own beliefs and seeing or observing the world around us to see how our own belief systems constrict our reality and blind us to certain truths, or hide the way out of a difficult situation from us because we're too fixated on something. Saturn brings us a certain amount of discipline there. We also have Uranus in Aries in a trine to the full moon. Uranus is retrograde at the moment, so this is about connecting with a higher mind to begin with. So it's got certain similarities to what the new moon is showing, but it's also about, through understanding who we are and getting in touch with the deep levels of our own personal identity, we can then modify our actions based on that. And if we apply the high level reasoning or the high level understanding of Sagittarius in its positive form, we can then understand how our actions affect the world around us. It affects our own sense of identity, because our actions are the outward manifestation of our own convictions and our own thoughts, etc. So actions follow thoughts, not the other way around. So if we understand who we are at a deeper level and how that guides our thought processes, we can then change our actions and align our actions with our goals, so that what we're doing is a reflection of who we are. We're not just doing something but we don't actually believe in it, or it's not true to who we are. Because we're entering a time where the only thing that matters is, are we being true to who we are, but also as an outwards, or as an add-on to that, how are we treating other people? Because the way we treat other people is a reflection of our own relationship with ourselves, and likewise how other people treat us is a reflection of their relationship with themselves. Hence the old Toltec wisdom, which is part 2, which is don't take anything personally. Easier said than done, because we used to, our egos need that person or connection to feel important. But if we learn to not take anything personally, to not assume anything either, which is the third part, we can improve things like communication, and we can let go of worrying about what other people think of us. This is something that, I mean, I myself had the same problem, so this isn't intended in a preachy way at all. We all have to learn to not take things so personally, because what another person does is a reflection of how they, or their relationship with themselves. So if we want to change things, we have to work on our own personal relationship with ourselves and with a higher power. The relationships around us will not fix themselves until we actually have the courage to heal our own relationship with ourselves and take back, or become the centre of our own story again, because that will then enable all the other people in our, that will change, it'll help change the relationship with the people around us. But if we don't change the relationship with ourselves, then changing other relationships won't happen, because we are only responsible for our half of any given relationship, and the other person is responsible for their half. And therefore we have to take responsibility for ourselves, what we believe, our expectations, and what we say and do as an outwards manifestation of this. So it's been a rather long-winded post about the new moon in Sagittarius, but at the end of the day, these are just guidelines for what this new moon offers us. We have to take the actions necessary, and we have to take responsibility for our actions. And we're the ones who have to initiate any new changes we want in our lives. We can't expect another person to do it. It is not their job to do that. If another person can help us and they do so willingly, that's great, but ultimately we are responsible for our own lives, and we have to make the effort of being conscious of where we don't take responsibility for things, or where our own beliefs affect things and we end up taking things personally when we shouldn't. So it's a time of broadening our minds and looking at the big picture and looking at how our relationship with ourselves affects the world around us and affects our relationship with it. And working with this understanding, we can affect the relationship we have with ourselves, allow love to be the guide instead of self-judgment, self-fear and self-hate. Unfortunately is a common thing at the in the world. People aren't happy with who they are for whatever reason because they've been taught that there's something wrong with them, but that's what other people perceive because they think that what they believe everyone else believes, and if there's someone who goes against that, it causes discomfort. But we can only ever be who we are, and therefore we owe it to ourselves to learn to love ourselves, to face our own shadows, and to let go of what's hidden in our shadow through the light of awareness and forgiving ourselves. Because if we can't forgive ourselves, how can we forgive other people for their perceived slights? Because we can get away from other people, we can never get away from ourselves. So if we want a life to be happy, if we want it to be optimistic and joyful, then we have to create those conditions inside ourselves for them to then show on the outside. So I hope it's a useful guide for the new moon in Sagittarius and the various opportunities it brings. May it bring you many opportunities for substantial personal growth and a greater sense of freedom and adventure in your life. Take care. Many blessings.